It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Locked On Lakers podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin. I'm joined not by you guys. I kicked you guys out of my house. I am not going to answer your guys' questions. I'm going to push those off to the next couple days here with Pete. The Lakers just lost to Dallas in a result that most people who've been paying attention to this game or to this team probably could have seen coming a little bit. They haven't played very well defensively, and then an elite offense came in and knocked them off their floor. Today's show, the way today's actually going to go, I'm going to talk to Matt Moore of the Action Network. He has been waiting, honestly, on bated breath for the Lakers to lose their first game in front of people. And now that the Lakers have lost their first game, this time getting their asses kicked by Dallas, he wants to come on and talk about the Lakers and why Alex Caruso isn't worthy of the pub that he's gotten today. Matt, how you doing? How was your Thanksgiving?
Slanderous lies. Slanderous lies. This has been the thing that I think has been fascinating about this year is like there is a conversation going on Twitter about how much attention the Lakers are getting, particularly through social media. There's a lot, I think, for you and I to talk about with regards to the media and the Lakers, because the Lakers fans are in a very different place from the rest of us. But overall, here's the thing is like if you go back and you look at my Lakers centric tweets, they're almost all positive. Like Lakers fans are used to me finding like they've had a good season, but look at this stat. Like, okay, looks like they're good. But if you dig into the defensive ratings, like I did a big thing last year when they were headed into December that was basically like, look, they're okay, but they're not great. And there's a lot of warning signs here, especially with the kids. Not well received. That was not well received. And my entire thing this year has been, look, I was pressed. I did a spot on Stadium and a video show for Stadium, and they were like, we need a title pick. And I really was like, I don't think in those terms anymore because I do all the betting stuff. I'm like, well, it's about value, right? Like, what's the best value? Is there value to be found on a title pick, and where is it? And there's a bunch of teams I can make the case for, and there's a bunch of positions that I put up together in preseason, but I needed to pick like one team, and ultimately that was like a gut pick, and I was like, I think it's the Lakers. Like I think the Lakers, and even after this loss to the Mavericks, this one singular loss in November to the Mavericks, I still believe that the Lakers or December rather, I still believe that I think the Lakers are going to win the title. That's my gut impulse right now is that the Lakers are going to win the title. I think they've been amazing. I think Frank Vogel has not gotten enough credit for what he's done. No. But every other Laker has gotten more than their fair share of credit for what they've done. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's like I'm a Lakers believer. I am on their position. I took out positions in preseason on them having more wins than the Clippers and them winning the division. I staked them. So I can't get pinned as the Laker hater because I put my hard-earned income behind this team, and I know how good they are.
No, I mean, like you and I talked before the season got started, and so the second half of the show. Look, there are two conversations that Matt and I are actually going to have. We're going to start by the coverage of this team, and specifically Alex Caruso, who for some reason has become a lightning rod of NBA take-a-tude. So we're going to start there. And then as we get further into the show, we're going to pick up on a conversation that Matt and I had heading into the season on how we thought you should bet the Lakers and whether or not that has changed. But I am really interested here. So I've been trying to figure out a way to have this conversation that doesn't have it come off as me saying basically basically standing Alex Caruso. I don't want to do that. I'm not gonna hop on here and stand Alex Caruso. I think he has a really cool story. He's an undrafted dude from Texas A&M who played behind Tyler Ennis and Rajon Rondo, and now is an important part of a championship contending team, if not championship favorite team. And then there's also the aspect of he's this unassuming white dude who is the subject of a ton of memes and also will drop it on your head when he catches you sleeping. So with that as the premise of this conversation, I'm kind of interested as to the pushback, the blowback that we have seen, because usually I get it. Usually I understand the blowback to Lakers takes or the blowback to or the pushback to the Lakers just in general. Usually I can kind of understand where this is coming from. But in this sense, in this subject in particular, I really don't understand where it's coming from. I'm really maybe I'm so far into this has been a really fun Lakers season that I can't quite understand what's going on here or whatever. But I see this kind of blowback to Alex Caruso coverage, and I don't understand where it's coming from. So Matt, explain to me where this is coming from.
Well, it's funny because we had concurrent conversations happening yesterday, and they basically they overlapped, right? Because what's kind of gone on is in the last couple of days, there started to be a discussion, which has honestly been a long time coming. This has bugged me for a long time. There are two entities in particular, and I don't want to call people out. That's not something that I'm super into doing. Mm-hmm. Everybody's just trying to make their jobs. They're just trying to make a living. I get it. But there are certain media entities online, and two of the biggest ones in terms of social reach are Bleacher Report
and Silver Screen and Roll.
and Slam Online.
Yeah.
And those two entities should be tasked with spreading the entire league, with promoting the entire league and promoting all of the great stars that happen on a nightly basis, appealing to hardcore fans as well as hey, here's a guy that you should check out. All of these things should be in play. Can I
stop you there though?
Yeah.
Why is that their job?
So the reason it is because one, if you're going to cover the sport, you need it. If you want to be a Lakers page, be a Lakers page. But one, with Turner, you're actually a league partner. BR is owned by Turner. That's a league partner, which means that they are failing the other 29 franchises by giving the Lakers this much attention. Now, I get why this happens. The response I got yesterday was pretty across the board, which is look, the Lakers are the most popular team. Mm-hmm. Social success is judged by likes and engagement, so they're just going to do what's going to get them the most likes and engagement. I have dealt with social media producers for major companies before. I've been in the industry long enough and have watched Twitter evolve. I dealt with these people, and I had a conversation with one time that I was like, why are you doing things this way instead of promoting our work? Or we have this really great feature on this other guy. What are you doing? And he said, because I don't get judged on that. My bosses are impressed if I have a tweet that gets 50,000 likes, not if we send more traffic to you. Then you get more credit for it, but I don't. And I was like, but we all work together. If I retweet you, I'm helping you out. Don't we work together? And he was like, kind of, but I'm more concerned with what we do. But that was really illuminative to me. That was really illuminative. And this is the same thing here where
but now one, I do think traffic though. That's
no, I do think there's a degree to which there actually is I just think a lot of these companies are either headquartered in New York or LA, and a lot of these folks just tend to be Lakers fans. That's okay. That's common. That's common.
Nah.
No, but look, man, if you scroll down these pages, you see post after post after post of, and this is what started yesterday was a whole thing about KCP, right? Was that, and it was basically saying he's shooting 50% from the field and he's been playing great, and that's all true. And totally, that tweet in and of itself in a vacuum is worth having. But if there's been a player for another franchise that's been getting killed for playing like garbage and then suddenly has a long stretch, if Stanley Johnson gets into the rotation in Toronto and goes Nova, there's not going to be that kind of attention paid to it. Caruso, I will say this, it's a little bit more complicated because I will say there is a tendency of people to dismiss him, and that's from casual fans. Having watched those Lakers games last year, which were just so painful to watch.
Yeah.
he's legitimately good. Like, I don't have any complaints with him. Like, he doesn't bring anything on offense, but that's not what he's there for. I'm fine with defensive specialists. Like, Caruso does, like, absolutely bust his ass on defense, and yes, can dunk. I don't really care about that part. I care about the defense part. Like, he's a net positive. Like, the data shows that out, and when you watch him, you're like, that guy, like, made an impact. The energy that he brings an impact. Alex Caruso is kind of analogous to Kenneth Faried, and that's a weird thing to say. But there is,
they look so alike is a thing,
right? But but I'll just say, like, he is getting by naturally more attention just because he's a Laker, and a lot of this ties back into this, gets into the midseason tournament stuff and all of the conversations that are occurring about the ratings. Like, there is a big thing going on here, which is starting to be more of a conversation, and it's coming from the teams, and it's circulating, and it crosses into the media and our responsibilities. And it has to do with the question of whether or not it is for the best for the NBA to be the Los Angeles Globetrotters and everybody else being generals.
All right, let's take a quick second. When we come back, I do want to talk, because this is one of the things that you and I talked about. I don't remember if it was on this show specifically or if this was the Locked On NBA show that you and I had this conversation about, where it was, is the NBA in a place where it can market itself more in an NFL type season compared to the historic NBA type seasons, where heading into most NBA seasons, you are more cognizant of these are the 3 or 4 teams that are going to be vying for an NBA title this year, and then there's everybody else. And then this year there were like 8 of those teams, and a lot of them aren't in major markets. So are they actually ready to market the league in that kind of a season? And I had questions about that. You were actually a lot more confident that they were. So I'm interested to see where that switch seems to have taken place with you. We'll get to that, though, on the other side of the second.
Hi, I'm Gavin Shaw.
And I'm Alex Wolf, and we're the hosts of Locked On Knicks. Gavin, you're 6'3" and about 90 pounds soaking wet. How do you shop for clothes?
Well, Alex, it's always been a challenge. That is, until I discovered Indochino. Indochino gives you a spectacular in-store fitting, or you can feel free to take your measurements at home using their handy online guide. They allow you to personalize every aspect of your suit, shirt, jacket, or chinos to your precise measurements. And you can choose everything from your lapel to a custom monogram.
Best of all, your custom-tailored garments only take 2 weeks to show up on your doorstep. But don't take our word for it. Knicks Rookie of the Year contender R.J. Barrett was wearing Indochino on draft night when he turned heads with that eye-catching pink suit. If you want to look like RJ, he even has his own custom line of fabrics and linings available for purchase right now.
Start your style upgrade now with $30 off your total purchase of $399 or more at Indochino.com when entering Locked On at checkout. Plus, shipping is free.
That's Indochino.com, promo code Locked On for $30 off your total purchase of $399 or more. An incredible deal for made-to-measure clothing.
You really have no excuse anymore to wear clothing that doesn't fit.
Your team.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Bucks.
Locked On Raptors.
Locked On Nuggets podcast.
Every day.
On Monday.
It's Taco Tuesday!
On this Wednesday.
Thursday looks great. Starting this Friday.
When it comes to the biggest stories.
The leading storyline to watch for.
A couple things from the preseason have kind of piqued my interest even more in terms of how good this team can be.
Draymond spoke with the media after the game, and I thought he had the right outlook when it comes to this.
Yeah, that, means precisely nothing in the grand scheme of winning a championship, I guess, but...
You need to be Locked On.
That is LOCKEDON.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
In the Apple Podcast app.
Google Podcasts.
Spotify.
It's all coming up on today's edition of Locked On Jazz.
Ow! Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So like I said, you and I had a conversation heading into this season where I had questions about whether the Lakers or whether the NBA was situated or understood how to market itself in a season that they were heading into this year. And based on some of your gripes here, And again, you were telling me, like, you were trying to dissuade me of those opinions heading into the season, but based off of some of your concerns as the season has actually taken place, you seem to have kind of, for the lack of a better term, like, it's kind of swapped your stance on that.
Well, I think a lot of it is like I think that there is a real sense of parity, but the problem is, like, there's a difference between parity and relevance.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
No,
okay,
big.
And because, like, look, do I think the Lakers will win the title? Like, I've said that, yeah. But if you told me the Bucks, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Rockets, I will include very, very tentatively the Nuggets. I'm taking Utah out for right now, and I'm taking the Sixers out for right now. Like, they just have not been able to show me, and I don't believe in any of the other East teams. But if you told me any of those teams won, then I would just be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, yeah, all right, well, that's cool. Like, they were able to pull it off. And that's a wider range than we've seen. And it's a little wider than we've seen historically, which has been, okay, like the last couple of years, it's been one team. And that was obviously, I think everybody agreed, like, this is not good. This is not good when I'm constantly getting asked, why should I pay attention to the NBA when I know who's going to win? I got asked that on every national radio program for years. And I didn't have an answer for him. Like, all I could really say is, like, look, the Rockets play them really well. They got to catch some breaks. They might be able to do it. And then they didn't catch breaks, right? And so everyone kind of agrees one is bad. Two is probably not enough. When you get into three, it's like, okay, that's kind of historic. I was talking to a GM, and he made this point to me, and it really stuck out to me, because when we talk about this, what everyone says is, look, it's always been like this. Look how successful the league was in the 80s with the Lakers and the Celtics. That's how it's always been. Mm-hmm. Except for his response was, is that good? Like, that got the NBA on the map from when it was on tape delay.
So how do you continue to expand it?
Right, but we don't exist there anymore. Now, there's a valid question to be asked about whether or not the league needs growth, okay? Like, I personally, because I am a privileged person and have a good job, can be like, no, I just would rather it stay like the size it is now. Like, it's gotten a little too big. I'm okay with, like, growth doesn't mean much to me, right? But the players care about that because they make more money. The teams care about that because they make more money. And there's also a kind of sense that if you're not growing, you're getting smaller. Yeah. And smaller means that people losing money. And then it's like, oh, well, we're going to have a CBA fight. And then we got a lockout. And then, like, normal people are losing jobs. Players aren't losing jobs. But, like, team employees and NBA employees, that's what happened in the last lockout that nobody talked about. Everybody was like, oh, the players are kept out of doing what they love. And I'm like, dude, they just fired, like, they fired people that worked at the NBA for 30 years, and they let them go because they needed to make a show of how much they were hurting for cash.
Yeah, the Lakers fired their med staff and haven't really recovered since.
Right. So it's like there's a whole thing that goes into this if you're not growing. But it also just gets to, okay, if you're like, I love the NBA and I want it to be the best it can possibly be. And the best it can possibly be, in my opinion, for the fans, is an environment, and not for Lakers fans. Lakers fans have it good. Like, this is the situation you want. For the fans, is you want it more analogous to the NFL. It'll never be like the NFL. It'll never be as popular as the NFL. The seasons are entirely different.
Yeah, it isn't a blood sport. So
right. There's just all these differences. But in the NFL, 20 teams fans go into that season saying to themselves, you know what? We're not perfect, but if everything goes right, we can win the Super Bowl. 20 franchises out of 32.
Well, so should the NBA, like, inherit single game playoff series? Because, like, that's why that's the thing. Like, baseball's
it's why I'm supportive of the midseason tournament.
Yeah,
it's why I'm like, we need to have more than one thing for teams to play for. Because, like, honestly, it's gotten corrosive in terms of being able to be successful. Like. Mm-hmm. And here is a actually Lakers analogous situation. Going back to West and that team, the Baylor West teams, that team was known as like, oh, it's fun. Like, the Lakers are all fun and LA and flashy, showy, but, like, the Celtics win championships. Mm-hmm. That's what they do. And it took them forever to break out of that and reorient themselves into being like a championship caliber team. Like, for them to be considered on the same tier. For the first couple of decades of the league, it was like, no, the Celtics beat the Lakers every year. And like that was like how it was considered. They owned them, you know? And so by proxy of that, it's like it's probably better if there is a sense from all of these individual markets. I want to tune in and watch the games because I think my team has a shot. Because right now, I think that's one of the biggest problems the league faces is if you're a Lakers fan, you're tuning in and you're watching because you've always been a Lakers fan and you believe in their history of success. So even when they were terrible, the ratings were okay because you're just like, I've always watched Lakers games because they've won championships before. Like the championships were a key part of that. And now the ratings are bonkers for the Lakers games because lots of folks are bandwagon Lakers fans, and there's like a huge section of diehard fans. Not to like they have an awesome fan base, right? And they're back in plugged into my team has a shot. And I think in a lot of franchises, and I live in one, and like Denver, like literally, Denver is going to have to win a title for people to buy in. Like that's it, because they don't believe that Denver can win a title. That's a bad competitive environment. Like and if you ask like what the impact is here with social media, what that has to do with, it's about setting a narrative. It's about setting, a feeling. It's about setting a concept. Those don't play into what actually happens. But if you're trying to market the league, if you're trying to create increased interest in the league, which is starting to wane, or maybe it's just cord cutting or whatever, there's lots of explanations to take here. I do think that part of it is if you're a Bucks fan, if you're a Nuggets fan, if you're even a Rockets fan, all you see is Lakers, 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 Lakers. And I want to be clear on this because this is where you and I got to. I don't mind tweets about Alex Caruso. I think tweets about Alex Caruso are good. That guy busted his ass. He worked his way up the depth chart, and he competes for one of the best teams in the league. It's about volume and ratio. It's about, okay, there's got to be room for everybody in this and not just what a story Dwight Howard is. Can you believe the story of Alex Caruso? KCP Revenge Tour. Oh, man, how great is it to see Avery Bradley getting back? Wash King showing him up. Like, okay. There's got to be a little bit more room. There's room in our space to talk about more than just those teams. What I want to ask you is I've gotten this pushback that a lot of Lakers fans feel like everybody just talks about the Clippers. And I'm really fascinated by that.
I mean, it's a lot of comparison things. So the thing that annoys me, I can only speak to me personally. How Lakers fans feel about Clippers fans and Clippers coverage is something that I can kind of have my finger on the pulse of, but I will never fully kind of grasp. But for me personally, what's annoyed me was the comparison of, well, the Clippers were this built not bought thing, and they show up and they have their hard hats and they have their sack lunches, and Clippers fans are the real ones because they've gone through the hard times and blah 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 blah. And I'm sitting here having covered the Lakers for the last 7 years, and it hasn't exactly been a freaking picnic. And then when you're looking at the sack lunches and the hard hat things, well, there's one team that is really operating through load management, and it isn't the Lakers. So, yeah, I mean, there's some gripes in the coverage and the narrative and the perspective between the two teams. But I'm really interested in some of what you were saying there about the ratio of tweets about the Lakers and having that compared to the rest of the league, and I don't know how that is solved. And I would even like to get back to the conversation about, like, well, is the fact that every year, whatever team that wins an NBA championship, that was the best team, for the most part. Sometimes you have outlier seasons where the Warriors lose Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson in the same series to the Toronto Raptors. So you have, or the Lakers lose to the Pistons back in 2004 or whatever, 2005, whatever it was. And whether or not it's actually good for the league that there is that every single season you do know if you won a title, you were the best team in the league. Is that actually the best thing for what's going on for the league? I think there's an interesting conversation to be had there too. So when we get back, we're going to talk about how much Matt Moore hates Alex Caruso. So, do you think, honestly, that it's a good or a bad thing that year in, year out, the team that wins an NBA championship is usually the best team in the NBA?
So we have to define good. That's the problem. Okay. So for years I have hyped the NBA because I've said, look, you can say what you want about March Madness and how fun it is, but at the end of the day, in the NBA, I know that the best team is going to be the one that wins out. They don't get knocked off because they had a bad shooting night. They were the best team. I'm starting to wonder a little bit about it because here's one of those things. I was talking to a bettor. Like
when you say you're starting to wonder about it, you're starting to wonder whether or not that's actually the case or whether or not that's actually good for the league.
Both. So here's one thing. I was talking to a bettor last year, and he bets on all sorts of sports, and he's in the sport. Okay. And he said that he's in betting big time, and he bets on all these different things, and he's very analytic minded. He goes through trends and looks at all of the stats and is able to process an incredible amount of information and does this across all these different sports. And he said to me, when he's betting NBA title odds, he says it's the only sport that he bets the narrative. And I was like, huh. And I was like, why? And he was like, because more often than not, the narrative wins out. There's a story that's told and the results kind of cave to that. And then 2 weeks later, Fred VanVleet goes ballistic and knocks off the Milwaukee Bucks in a series in which when Giannis and Kawhi shared the floor, when it was just Giannis and Kawhi without Fred VanVleet, the Bucks outscored them throughout the course of that series. I will go to my grave believing that they were the better team. In 2018, the Houston Rockets should have gone to the NBA title. They were the better team. But Chris Paul's injury doesn't happen to the Warriors versus the Rockets. It happens randomly after they've won all these titles and shaped James Harden's entire career narrative. And then they get hit with this injury bug. And the Raptors, riding their own narrative wave, managed to finally win a title with Kawhi. And there's all these types of things. And so it becomes very curious about the best team always wins the title. Well, the 2007 Mavericks were undeniably the best team in the league. The Mavericks were the best team in the league. And I was going nuts for the Warriors when they knocked them off that year. I thought it was awesome because it was chaos and everyone roots for chaos. But in the end, that only reinforced the Spurs narrative of the greatness of the San Antonio Spurs when they won that title, when the Mavericks got randomly knocked out by a weird ass Warriors team that was never heard from again. So it's the outliers never seem to hit the narrative heavy teams. And that to me is very weird. And then on the other hand of it, you ask whether it's good or not. I talked a couple of years ago, I was at Summer League, and I started asking every executive, what would you change? If you could change anything, what would you change? And they all said, we need some sort of single elimination element somewhere. It's just more exciting. It's just more exciting. And everybody loves chaos. And it's really hard, I think, to argue with that when you look at how popular college basketball is, because the product is inherently inferior. All the sports. The NBA is the only sport that you can really point to and say that the best team usually wins out. Whereas hockey, you get the hot goalie thing. Right. MLB, you get the hot pitcher thing. Right. Football, you get the Patriots are just assholes, and then college basketball is the nth degree of this. Right, but that's the thing is all those sports are more popular. Yeah, at some level we have to decide on. Well, except hockey. Hockey isn't more popular. Right. But with the other sports, at some level, I do think if we're going to decide what's best for the league, is it better? We have to define whether or not that means more popular. Whether that means more revenue or whether that means what is actually the best for the hardcore fans. And this is not an uncommon debate in any sort of field, but it is kind of an important one in that I think a lot of us that grew up with the NBA this way, there's a reason almost everybody I know that is a diehard hates the midseason tournament idea because it feels gimmicky. Yeah. It feels meaningless. And they're no, the title is the only thing that matters. And my point has been we take that too far, where the Pacers are the one I used in the tweet the other day. The Pacers have made the playoffs in 24 of the last 30 years. Like 24 out of 30 seasons, they've made the playoffs. That's an owner in Herb Simon that says, like, one, I can't afford to tank. But two, like, I'm not going to do it. We're going to try and compete. I'm going to give people a good product. I'm going to do whatever I can to give them the best product possible. And they've been good consistently from the Reggie Miller years through a really underrated mid 2000s team with Jermaine O'Neal and crazy ass Ron Artest and Reggie in the last couple of years of his career. Those teams were awesome when they were battling the Pistons until they literally fought them. And then you had the 2010s run with Paul George and Roy Hibbert and David West. That team was awesome and fun and just couldn't get past LeBron. And now like Oladipo's coming back to a team that's really good. But when not just the fans, but like I think media, we're really responsible for this because we openly dismiss those teams because a lot of media would rather just focus on the big flashy teams. Like
it makes my job easier.
The Lakers. Exactly.
Like
there's a reason
I host a Locked On NBA show and yeah, it makes my job a lot easier when I just say look, I only have to care about 4 teams.
I listen to this show and I love this show and I think you guys do a great job. Pete's blocked me and I still think Pete does a great job. Like, I get a lot out of Pete's analysis.
His latest thing for The Athletic was truly special.
It was great.
Yeah.
Okay. But at the same time, if I take you off of this show and I put you on whatever the lowest rated Locked On show, probably Nuggets since I've been doing it, whatever it is, right? Are you going to be as successful as you are with the Lakers? There's a very self-determining prophecy that occurs. And that is the thing is like, you look at the Patriots' success with the NFL, and like they have all these titles, but every single year the conversation in the NFL is not, oh, they're clearly going to win. Like the Patriots are going to win the Super Bowl. It's like, no, like they could lose. Like everybody could lose. Like the sport's really volatile, and the NBA has created a system with both its superstar players, the 7-game series, the length of the regular season, which weeds teams out. That in the end, like. There's a very self-fulfilling prophecy. And none of this is to say that I think the Lakers winning the title would be bad this year, because I think it would probably be a good thing. It would like people are comfortable with that narrative of the Lakers return to dominance. Celtics fans be a little pissed, but that's also good, right? Like that might probably get Ainge. That probably gets Ainge to start taking more shots downfield rather than being so conservative, because Ainge is probably like, oh no, I can't get past. Like that's the thing, right? And so, like, and that's good. But I do think that we can't go back to this model of the early 2000s when it was the Lakers are the dominant team and nobody else matters. And we can't go back to the 80s of there's only 2 teams that really matter. Curtis Harris, who runs Pro Hoops History, is my go-to guy for all things history. He even noted to me, he's like, even the 80s were deceptive in that regard. He's like, they only met 4 times. Yeah. He's like, you know, the Sixers won a title in there. The Rockets made the finals. The Bucks made a finals. Like there was all these teams that were really successive, and they're all lost to history because of how the NBA has decided to basically market it, which was Bird versus Magic coming out of the draft for the 2 iconic franchises. Yeah. And I know it's weird to be talking about this on a Lakers podcast because, like, look, you guys are going to get your share. Like, you're never going to be short of coverage. You're never going to be short of positive regard. You're never going to be short. The players themselves know that playing for the Lakers is special. But that's part of the issue, too, is, like, we need some more of the players to be like, no, like, this franchise is special. Like, this franchise matters. And if they don't, I'm going to make them that way rather than constantly keeping an eye on an opportunity to go to LA. You guys are going to be fine. You're going to be good. But it'd be probably even better for you if there was an idea that the league was super competitive and the Lakers were the best anyway.
No, I mean, I faced this in building this show out in that I probably could have had the show at, you know, some fraction of the popularity that it's at right now. But rather than just taking my entirety of the pie to myself, I said, you know what, I'll make the pie bigger, and in doing so, sacrifice a portion of that pie to bring Pete on and make that show a better overall experience for the listener. And maybe that's the direction that the NBA has to go in here too, is that instead of just devoting such a large portion of the pie to Lakers fans or to Celtics fans or So well, I think it's mostly Lakers fans. Yeah. Instead of devoting all of itself to Lakers fans, then maybe you could say, all right, we'll focus on that aspect of making the pie bigger. If that doesn't mean that, comparatively speaking, the Lakers don't get as big a portion of that pie, and I don't know how that even looks.
It looks like the Cowboys in the NFL.
It does, but like my problem with it lately has been, I don't know what it is about Caruso specifically that has rubbed me. I get it. If it's KCP, fine. If it's
Avery Bradley,
Danny Green, Avery Bradley, fine. But like Avery, like Al, you talked about the mid-season tournament and how that could just inject some fun and some randomness into the season. Isn't that what Alex Caruso is? Isn't he just a fun random dude who is playing an important role on a title contending Lakers team?
Yeah. So and like your point would be if Alex Caruso was the same kind of guy on another team that was contending, it would still be a great story and still be worth the attention it's received.
Yeah.
And I think the counterpoint to that, which again, I don't mind Caruso tweets. I think I'm pro Caruso content. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think the response to that is it doesn't happen if he's on another team.
No, I disagree.
He's not in the basketball zeitgeist, even on the Raptors, who are the defending champions.
It depends on the team. Like if he's on a LeBron team, I think he still gets the same Alex Caruso coverage.
That's probably fair. Right now. That's probably fair. Because like Dellavedova had his moment, right?
Yeah.
Dellavedova, like Delly had his moment in the finals just by being that dude, a better shooter, but being that dude for the Cavs.
Yeah, he's Caruso again. We have never seen somebody with his hairline other than LeBron that athletic. Like,
I guess here's kind of like a funny comparison. Okay, it's like if we were to do an analysis of and I won't just blame Slam and BR. Like I think this is across the board for everybody, ESPN and the rest. Mm-hmm. If we did an analysis of the number of tweets about Alex Caruso and the number of highlights shown, and compare those to TJ Warren, who's having like an incredible season for a really good Pacers team without Victor Oladipo. Like that ratio is going to be hugely out of whack, and that's kind of the thing. Is like T.J. Warren's is also busting his ass. T.J. Warren leads the Pacers in deflections. Like,
but also, all right, deflections. But
no, it matters though. Like
it does. It's sure.
I'm able to quantify like effort.
Like I said, there's no way for me to have to speak on my side of this coin without sounding condescending. But are the Pacers going to win a championship this year? Is Alex
Caruso going to win a championship this year?
Huh?
Is Alex Caruso going to win a championship this year?
All right. If you're going to hold up one team versus the other, which team is more likely to win a championship? Which team would you hold up higher?
Okay, but we can go down the Bucks roster. Like the Bucks are, I mean, that's actually the best comparison because the Bucks are a legitimate title contender and have been so the last 2 years. And the going conversation about the Bucks is, God, look at this roster. Get Giannis out of there. Can't wait to see Giannis with the Lakers.
No, like that's more Warriors than Lakers. Like the conversation is like we want to see Giannis with Steph because of the spacing that those guys provide. But like the thing with even the Bucks is that I am myself a Dodgers fan, and as a Dodgers fan, the Dodgers have been really effing good for years now in the regular season. And then you get to October and you say, all right, let's see what this team is actually about. And year after year after year, now again, we haven't reached year after year after year point with Milwaukee, but with the Dodgers, it was just like, that's cool. You guys are a good regular season team, but win me a freaking World Series for the first time in 30 years. And with Milwaukee, like the difference is that they don't have that same built up kind of animosity amongst its own fan base. But we saw what Milwaukee looked like in the playoffs last year. It was a lot of Giannis trying to figure, go 1-on-5 on whatever, and it didn't work out. Maybe it works out this year. Maybe
I will maintain that it was like they were good outside of Fred VanVleet, and that's okay. Like that was a heroic moment for him. That's awesome.
They hit it, and maybe they did just hit a buzzsaw. And when we go through the NBA Finals this year, and Giannis gets crowned this year, then awesome, we get to redo that math. But I think there is Harden's the same kind of thing where we kind of say with Harden, do more than what we see in the regular season. Like actually get to the playoffs and actually show what it is that your fans claim that you are.
But I think there's got to be a middle ground here. That's my thing.
Fine.
Is like
that's perfectly fine.
That's the thing. Is like we treat the Rockets as this joke of a fraud of a failure. When the Rockets made the Western Conference Finals in 2000,
they make that a lot easier for us to do. By the way.
And I agree. Look, I'm on the train of Harden needs to rest more in the regular season and bring him more in the playoffs. Like I'm absolutely in agreement of that. Mm-hmm. But we don't talk about them as like, look, he's got to do more. Like he can win a title, but he's got to do more. He needs to reorient himself and maybe not worry about the MVP so much versus what a bunch of clown frauds for losing in the Western Conference Finals twice and then losing to the Warriors 3 times. Like on some level, we probably need to be like, well, okay, they were facing the Warriors.
But they're so unlikable, Matt.
Well, but that's the thing is like a lot of folks are going to feel the same way about the Lakers, and I don't think that's fair either because like the Lakers honestly are LeBron. Everything I wondered about whether or not he was willing to invest, he's reinvested himself. Davis, I don't think has played awesome. I think he's been good.
Yeah.
But like the team collectively, I think just their commitment to defense is so incredible. There's some offensive stuff they got to fix. The Mavericks game kind of showed that. Like their 3-point rate is a problem, and that was an issue with Vogel coming in. Like these are all pretty known issues. Like they're not a perfect team. But like they are worthy of respect and admiration, which like that's what I've been tweeting about. I'm not the people that would always claim that I was this hater when they were supposedly good, and I was like, well, this is an issue and this is an issue, and then they would fall off the map. It was like, look, I'm always searching for what's the closest thing to the truth, and like the closest thing to the truth right now is like, no, I think the Lakers are the best team in the league. Like I believe that they're the best team in the league, even with their offensive limitations. Now, look, the Clippers have a real high ceiling, and they've shown it, but I don't know if they can get there. Like everyone's hoping for Clippers Lakers for a 4 out of 7. Like that would be a really great series. Personally, I hope it's a semifinal. I think it'd be really great to have a semifinal and then like the other teams in that other bracket. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah. For the Lakers' sake, I would rather not go through that.
I think it'd be amazing. I think it'd be so cool.
It'd be fun
because either the Clippers are finally going to get to tell you like to shut up about how much they don't matter, which you won't. You'll still be like, they can win a title and you'll still be like, you don't matter.
No, I would never.
Or, you guys get to finally tell them like, no, you're always going to be a little brother. You're always like, I'm up for it. I hope we get it. I don't know if we will or not because there's a bunch of teams that like just never wind up meeting. Toronto, Boston is the one I always think of. Like I don't have a really great way to evaluate Brad Stevens because he never had to face the Raptors. He faced LeBron, which is an unfair thing to have to go against, and he beat the rest of the teams barely. And like I really want to see Raptors, Celtics in a kind of the try hard teams of the East. I think that'd be a really good matchup.
Yeah, I mean it's well that's the thing and that's kind of how we started the season off. Like the conversation that you and I had, I'm as of right now I'm almost positive it took place on Locked On NBA when you and I were getting ready for the season, was that I wasn't sure that the NBA was ready to market this kind of a season. And so far, like I don't think my concerns have been.
I think you were right. Yeah. I will say this. I think you were right because what I underestimated was the fact that in the absence, like I said to you, like it's going to have to be long-term growth, right? Like we're going to have to grow these markets. We're going to have to grow these teams in terms of believing they have a chance and the fans really starting to buy in and there being excitement in these markets. And instead what we've seen is like the major media companies are more comfortable just being like, okay, but we know the Lakers are popular. So we'll just put the Lakers up front and then we'll just talk about the Lakers, and then they'll be like, and we'll talk about the Lakers, and then like everybody likes Kawhi and they know Kawhi. So we'll do like the Clippers versus the Lakers, and that's LA.
But Kawhi isn't like the deep dark secret of this thing is that Kawhi isn't marketable at all. Neither is Paul George.
Tough. Yeah, it's tough. Well, I think PG's probably more so. Like PG's actually like he's really good in interviews. He's a really likable guy. Like I think PG is probably more marketable. He hasn't been in the right situation, I don't think, to do it since he was in Indiana. Yeah. But I do think that there's a chance for him to kind of be the front man for the team, and I think he'll play some awesome basketball once he's past the injury stuff. But I just think that there is a kind of nothing else really pops, so let's just feed what pops. There's no like long-term growth like design from the league in terms of its conversations, in large part probably because they don't have control over what these media companies do. Like the league may pass along notes for coverage or social media or whatever, but they're going to do things like, hey, can you target this game? We really want to push this game. Or can you mention this hashtag? We're trying to get pushed. They're not going to be like, hey, could you mention Nikola Jokic like once at any point, or like, hey, you know who's won 9 of 12 as the pay? Like they're not doing that, right? So these companies are going to make decisions based off of what's best for them, which is reasonable, and what's best for them in most instances is the Laker. So maybe I'll just leave you with this question, which is an honest one, and maybe I don't know. Is it better for the league simply to be the Los Angeles Globetrotters and everybody else be the Generals? No. Is that really like? I'm dead serious. Maybe that is the best way for the NBA to have good years and good ratings and good growth.
No, because there's an inherent ceiling there, right? There are 29 other fan base. That works if it's the Harlem Globetrotters and there's only one other team involved here, and it's the Washington Generals. But there are 29 other teams. So of course that math that math just doesn't work out. It's just, how willing is the NBA, and how willing is the NBA's TV partners to take a hit in the short term to broadcast stuff and talk about stuff. And frankly, like the fairest point, honestly, that hasn't been made yet in this conversation has been the way that the conversation is driven, on shows like The Jump and on shows like on was it NBA Tonight, or what's the TNT? What's their
Inside
the NBA? Thank you. Like the way that conversation always goes is like, even if the Lakers aren't playing in those in the TNT games, it's how do those teams match up against the Lakers, or how do those teams that we just saw play meet, or how do they fit into the title picture? And is that a thing that we can is that a conversation we can turn back into draw Lakers fans who might be paying attention to this conversation right now anyway? Like, that to me is a fairer criticism than Bleacher Report's tweets about Alex Caruso. Like, that to me is, I'd be a lot more frustrated about that if I was a fan of another team than hearing about some dude who's averaging 5.5 points a game for the Lakers.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like I said, we were having concurrent conversations about things, because your big gripe is you're just like, can we just let Alex Caruso be fun? Is that a thing that we can do? And I think that's a perfectly reasonable point. Like, I think it's okay to be like, look, Alex Caruso's a really like fun story. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I really wish we could just give that one a little bit more time, because we got we got a very large sample with KCP versus 10 games. And like, look, I did the film work on that last game versus the Wizards, and he was everywhere in that game. Like, he was killer. Like, he was defensively awesome in that game. But I do think that there's issue. But I mean, look, a lot of this is unavoidable just because we're not starting from zero. The Lakers grew over 50 years to be the dominant, most popular franchise in the NBA. Like, relative to sport, I think the Lakers, like, if you took every team's popularity in all of sports relative to their sport, I would label the Lakers as the most popular team.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree.
The Cowboys have more fans because the NFL is bigger, but I
they
think
don't have as big a market share.
They don't have as big a market share of NBA fans versus the Lakers. I go to Nuggets games and it's half Lakers. Like that, the game on Tuesday is going to feel like an away game for the Nuggets, and that's rough. Like that, I always look at that and I'm like, this is just not good for the sport.
Yeah,
like it's awesome for the Lakers. It's great for the Lakers that they have such great fans. That's great, right? But we need it to be like Nuggets fans are like, no, I'm not going to sell my tickets to the Lakers fans. I'm going to go.
There's also no way to like force people to be fans of other teams. Like if people are Lakers fans, then they're Lakers fans. I don't know. I don't know how you legislate that.
I have a conversation planned with with an outlet in Denver to talk about this, about what a city's responsibility is to their teams. Like if you're going to be a sports fan, what are the responsibilities? What should you do? Because a lot of it is like the Broncos have unending loyalty here, and the Nuggets have almost none.
That's fair.
And so that's what's really interesting, right? Is like LA has multiple teams in every sport. So they have the ability to pick and choose and do these kind of things. I think it would be really interesting if the Clippers were the Clippers and the Lakers weren't the Lakers this year, because if the Lakers weren't as good as they are. And what I mean by that is like if you didn't have this historic choice and the Clippers were just absolutely kicking ass, which they're not. They're actually pretty fallible. I don't think the Clippers are as good as their record. If that was the case and the Clippers were just this like really dominant franchise, like how many of the bandwagon Lakers fans start waffling? Not the hardcore ones. And like there's bandwagon fans in every town.
Yeah.
And for every city.
Everybody listening to the show right now is a hardcore Lakers fan. How dare you, sir?
Well, no, I'm serious. They are, though. Like, who is downloading a Lakers podcast if they're not hardcore fans? Like, the folks who are listening to this one are the ones in the upper deck, not in the lower bowl.
Yeah.
Like that should be your tagline, is the podcast for the upper deck. Like,
I've been trying to push on David the fact that like the best Lakers fans listen to Locked On Lakers, but you know,
it's true. I would agree with it. Like the hardcore fans, but that's the thing is, you know, most fans in all of sports, like most people are casual fans.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to be a casual Lakers fan because they have identifiable stars in a big market with a classic jersey design with a history of success.
And it's easy to see them, you know, on any given night, any given week, you know, no matter where you are in the country, it's easy to find them. And like that's a part of, you know, this conversation, which has extended really long.
Yep. Yep.
This was fun. We were supposed to talk about the betting stuff about the Lakers, so we're gonna have to come back to that on a later show. But Matt, this was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with this. Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
I did. I had an excellent. I cooked the whole meal.
You did? Jen cooked her first turkey. She did her first turkey, and it turns out she's just as big a bigger superstar, honestly, than we thought going into that thing. So.
That's awesome. That's so great. I have undercooked 2 turkeys, so I no longer do them, and I just do Cornish hens because they are as good as turkey without all of the threat of poison. So.
Oh man, I can. If I would have guessed heading into a conversation with you about Thanksgiving meals that you would be a Cornish hen Stanton, that's probably about where I thought we would wind up.
I just seem like a Cornish hen stand.
Do you have like a favorite side dish? I'm a big stuffing guy.
Green bean casserole. Oh, that's my favorite.
Man, that's
simple.
Jen's favorite too. I can't get into it. It's not, doesn't have a good vote.
I love it. It's really good. Although I like all of them. My mom makes a dessert that's called cherry salad. That's just like Cool Whip, canned cherries, pineapple, crushed pecans, and like whipped together. And I have to like, it is so bad for you, and I have to try and stay away from it. Like I didn't make it for Thanksgiving. She's making it for Christmas. I'm going to eat like the entire thing. I'm the only person in the family that eats it too.
That's great. That's great. There's a great, if you guys listening, if you Google maraschino cherry pot, like marijuana bust, there's a great story out there. A tremendous story.
Before we go, give me your prediction on a line for Lakers Nuggets on Tuesday.
It's in Denver?
It's in Denver.
I think it'll be Denver giving up half a point to the Lakers?
I think it's going to be a pick'em.
It's gonna be right in there, right in that area.
Because I think the actual line is Nuggets -1 with home court, and then they're gonna expect so much Lakers money that they're not gonna want to give the Lakers money line plus. Yeah. So I think they'll start it at pick'em, and by close it'll be like Lakers -1.
Yeah, it's gonna be really close. I would probably still put money on Denver because of their shooting ability. I think Denver winds up winning that game, maybe even handily.
Yeah, so you can talk to your Locked On NBA partner about it, about the shooting. He'll have more thoughts on it, as he always does, about the offense. But the Nuggets will enter that game as the 25th ranked team in effective field goal percentage.
Yeah, but the Lakers defense, there's a lot of fool's gold at the beginning of the year. We'll
you
talk
think so?
about.
I think it's legit. I think their defense is legit. I think the offense is a real issue.
The cool thing about this is that we are actually technically colleagues now, so we can come back and talk about that game as we get closer to that game.
Let's do it.
All right. That'll do it for this episode of the Locked On Lakers podcast. Thank you guys very much for tuning in to what I consider one of the better conversations I'm going to have on this show throughout the entire NBA season. Like I said, usually this would be a mailbag episode. What that means is that there's more time for you guys to get your mailbag questions in, so leave those in the form of a 5-star review, and Pete and I will get to those over the course of the week. Thank you guys very much. Have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
What's up, everybody? I'm William, the Opinion Updike.
And I'm Positive Chuck Mockler.
And we host the Locked On Clippers podcast.
Two best friends give you all Clippers everything every single weekday.
We know a little bit, but have a lot to say, so get ready for some real talk from real fans.
Find us on Twitter and Facebook at Locked On Clippers, and tune in Monday through Friday for up-to-date content about the best basketball team in Los Angeles.
Well, aren't they kind of
technically the... No, we're the best one.
Locked On Clippers, local experts on the biggest stories in the NBA.
The Locked On Podcast Network has the ultimate NBA podcast starting 5. Starting at podcast number 1 is your favorite team's daily podcast from a local expert. Starting at the podcast number 2 is Locked On NBA, your daily 30-minute look at what happened the night before and what's upcoming. At the number 3 spot is Locked On Fantasy Basketball, the number 1 fantasy basketball show in the land. And the podcast number 4 position is Rejecting the Screen with Noah Kozlov and Adam Stanko. And finally, the big men in the middle, the unequaled Hollinger and Duncan NBA show with former NBA executive and analytics godfather John Hollinger. It's Locked On Podcast Network's NBA podcast ultimate starting 5. Follow all 5 on your favorite podcast provider.